when really the only reason as adults we should care about nature is because nature has the right to exist, period. The Gangan cockatoo, which is the bird of the ACT that represents the ACT, is endangered. And the superb parrot, which we get flocks during this time of year on the lawns of Parliament House and around Canberra, is a future endangered parrot. You would never treat your grandmother as it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is hungry. No, you would never say that. So we're putting animals in the same category as this cup or a paper clip. Do we know how to animate? No. But, that's tomorrow's problem. Just say yes, and then we'll sort it out. And they gave us the Argyle cut, which is this beautiful site in the rocks, and it's massive. The only other times that it had been activated was by Disney and the BBC. So we had a massive responsibility on our hands. They completely shut down the street so people could go and experience it. And we were there. People were just lying down. And Gil says, it this feels like a temple. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I want this to feel like.
Eggpicnic is an award-winning design studio devoted to wildlife conservation. I hope this conversation inspires you to join the movement.
We've had people say, I bought this piece of yours because I have it at home as an icebreaker to talk to my friends about climate change.
Thank you so much, Camila, for making time to have this conversation. I have for 2 or 3 or 4 years admired your art since I first saw it at the Australian Parliament House for Enlighten. I've followed your journey very closely, and I'm very keen to have a conversation about art, about conservation, but about what it means to you. Can you start me off by giving me a little bit of a background of how your journey started?
100%. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to share the story. I grew up moving a lot. Different cities, different countries because of my parents' work. And for me, since I was a little girl, nature was my safe space. It was that one thing that was always there for me, no matter where we were. I could find a refuge in it. And as a little kid, 5 years old, I don't know what age I was when I learned to read, but I started collecting zoo books, Nat Geos, and I was just, because this was pre-internet. I was just reading about animals and reading about these amazing places and landscapes. Absolutely blown away. So I wanted to study zoology growing up, which is the behavior of animals. I was 100% not growing out of my love for animals ever. And I was really happy with that. Because sometimes people think that as an adult, loving animals, at some point you need to let go and grow up. And that sense of wonder just stayed with me. But the problem was that I was terrible at science, at anything that had to do with science. There was no way that was going to work. There was no way that being bad at science was going to allow me to follow into studying animals and conservation. So I kind of let go of that for a little bit. On the other hand, I was really creative. I really liked drawing. It was also a safe space for me. So I said, all right, I'm going to study design because I feel like that's where art and function merge. And I went into uni, I studied design, and the things I guess I was being taught, they always felt a little empty because they were revolving around humans. It was always services for humans, or let's create this to make human lives better. So I was always questioning a lot of things. Therefore, I spent a lot of time in the library at uni, and I discovered amazing activists that use art to communicate issues that matter to them. And fast forward, uni finished, and this is where I meet Chris, the other half of Eggpicnic, in Milan. So I'm from Chile, Chris is from Sydney. We meet in Italy, and we discover that we both have a passion for the environment. Chris was also really into how the impact of designers affect the future of the world. So we sat down and said, I'm a graphic designer, you're a product designer. Why don't we work together? So it actually all started. Do you want me to tell you the story of how Eggpicnic got its name?
Yeah.
So I was living with some friends from Chile in Milan. And they were moving back to Chile, and I was subletting from them. I had like very low income. I was already kind of going out with Chris. We met at a party, and my friends are like, all right, we're moving. We're gonna leave all these things that we're not gonna take with us, like all these clothes. And for some reason there was like a basket of eggs. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna let this go to waste. This was 15 years ago, by the way. It was a long time ago. And then going out with Chris, and Chris says, do you want to move in with me? Because you kind of have no other option, really. And I was like, look, this is my best option. Okay, I'll move in with you. We're already going out. We're sort of starting a relationship. And he's like, all right. So I grab all these things, my bags, these eggs, and I show up to his apartment. And he's like, what is going on? And I'm like, look, I just don't want them to go to waste. They don't have like a date on them. So I guess we just have to go through them really quickly.
High protein.
So, high protein. It was like a very high protein date, right? So I'm like, all right, let's cook, let's boil, poach, scramble, whatever. Just let's use them. And we went on a date to Parco Sempione, which was our favorite park in Milan. And at that park is when we sat down and said, okay, so I'm a graphic designer, you're a product designer, why don't we work together? So it all started at the Eggpicnic, which was really symbolic for us. It had nothing to do with birds. It had nothing to do with, you know, because people are like, oh, sometimes your drawings look like eggs. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. Like, this is just the start of the story. And then together, we moved to Chile for 3 years. And then in Chile, we learned traveling to little towns near Santiago, where I'm from, the capital. And there are little towns that specialize in work by artisans who live with the land, who live in symmetry with the land and care for the land. And we just absorbed so much. Just learning how they respected the environment. They worked with the resources. They had been doing the same work for hundreds of years, and we were just so inspired. So we did a few collaborations with them. And then after that, Chris was like, right, it's time for me to apply for my PR. We're going to stay here in Chile and all of that. And this was like pre-internet form times. And one of the papers goes missing and his application gets rejected. And he's like, right, we have to, do you want to come to Sydney with me? Like, what other option do we have? And I said, all right, let's go to Sydney, 1 year only. It's been 13 years. And in Sydney is where I feel like I rediscovered how, like, I knew that design was important. I knew that design is a communication tool. Design and art are incredibly powerful. But in Sydney, I feel like it triggered something that went back to my love specifically for animals. That was always there, but I just didn't know how to let that creative energy out. So we moved into this little apartment in the inner west in Sydney. I had been to Australia once before for a wedding, like didn't have the full experience. I'm sitting in the apartment on the balcony, and in the distance, I see this like giant. Is this a bird or is this a baby dragon? Like, it is enormous, right? And it's flying towards the balcony, and I'm just sitting there, and I have a sulphur-crested cockatoo land on the balcony. My mind is blown. Absolutely. Like, this is a proper 2-kilo bird, right? And with a massive, you know, personality and attitude. And don't get me wrong, in Chile, we have the most amazing birds. But they don't come knocking on the window asking for food or kind of like, hey, you know.
I want to hang out with you.
I want to hang out with you. And so I'm sitting there going like, what is going on? And this bird is just getting closer and closer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm in awe. I am in complete awe. And then I go and call Chris, and I'm like, Chris, born and bred in Sydney. I call Chris and I'm like, you have no idea what just happened. And he's like, what? A cockatoo just landed on the balcony. And Chris is like, what's the rest of the story? I'm like, that's the story. No, what do you mean, what's the rest of the story? Like, this is amazing. And he's like, okay, I grew up with this. Like, and then I'm like, you don't understand how amazing this is. When somebody not from Australia comes to Australia, like, this is the first thing that just blows you away. Like, you guys have parrots with all the colors of the rainbow. Like, I remember the first time I saw a gala, I had to yell, like, stop the car immediately. What is going on? You have a pink parrot. Like, it was just an amazing experience for me to have that interaction with the bird as well. And the interaction that Australians have with their bird life actually occurs on very few places on Earth. So I was a little disappointed about how he reacted to it, because I was like, no, I want you to be mind blown as I was, because I think this is like incredible. So then I started doing a little bit of research, because having moved to Australia from Chile, I'm like, wow, I'm going to this amazing, progressive, futuristic world that, they probably have it all together. They're protecting the environment. They're doing all of this stuff and this stuff. And then you get here and you read about it. And it was just so disappointing to see how behind Australia actually was in terms of conservation, caring for the environment. And then so I started reading a little bit about birds, and I started, this was like my spare time of like, I'm settling in a new city. I'm trying to find work. I know I want to work in like a non-for-profit conservation organization who's ever going to hire a designer full-time for that. So I was kind of like, while I was jumping around, I started drawing. I started drawing them. I started reading about birds. I just, started making little models, and these were all up in the apartment. We lived in the tiniest apartment. And one day I have a friend from Chile who calls me and says, hey, I have a Chilean friend in Sydney. His computer died. Can Chris have a look at it? Because Chris is really good with all the tech stuff. And we're like, sure. Tell him to come by. Not a problem. And I remember it was raining. It was winter or something. It was cold. And he knocks on the door. He's on his bike. He comes in and he sees all these birds, like bird drawings and things stuck to the walls. And he's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I'm drawing birds. What do you do? I'm an ornithologist. So he was studying birds, and he was a birder, and he was a bird guide, and he was like, so we were all like, this is amazing. And he's like, come with me and I'll take you guys bird watching. And from there, I mean, it escalated pretty quickly. He introduced us to a friend. That friend was part of Birding New South Wales, my bird club. I have been in that club for ages now. And I just started learning so much about these birds and realizing that there wasn't enough public knowledge out there about the things that were happening, or just even realizing that people couldn't even name 5 birds around them. And for the birds being so in your face, I found that was like, there was sort of like a gap that needed to be filled with, well, we need to care for what's happening, but we don't know anything. Where do we start? And I felt like I was screaming into the void, because I'm like, gosh, we have all the tools to make this place amazing. Why aren't we making it amazing? Okay, so the feeling of screaming into the void translated into the immediate reaction of, okay, what can I do to help? I'm a communicator. Maybe I can draw. My drawings aren't that good. It doesn't matter. Get it out there. And I just started drawing birds and more birds and birds and birds and birds. And that's how the little eye as well came about. I remember I caught a bus to the Botanic Gardens. I was sitting on the grass drawing a bird. And I drew the entire bird except for the eye. And I'm like, oh, this looks really nice. I really don't want to ruin it. Like, I know that the eye, because I can't draw eyes, guys. Like, I am bad at realistic drawings. I can't do perspectives. Like, my drawing capacity is quite limited. That's why it's so simple. And I had drawn the entire cockatoo, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll put the eye here. And I just put the pencil down to where the eye should go. And I lifted the pencil, and that was the eye. That little dot was the eye. So that's why all the Eggpicnics have a little dot as an eye, and they're very recognizable. So after that, let's have exhibitions. Let's bring people in. And then I realized that being from Chile, I also didn't know a lot about animals. Like, it's things that you don't really get taught in school. Like, I remember we were talking about Paddington Bear with Chris. And Chris says, do you know that Paddington Bear is from Peru? Right? So I lived 7 years of my life in a city called Arica. It's like right next to Peru, the top of Chile, right? And I'm like, there are no birds in Peru, Chris. And Chris is like, I swear he's from Peru. And then we go down the search, and yeah, the spectacled bear lives in Peru. And I'm like, how did I not know that? Like, even me as an animal lover, how did I not know that? So we put our first exhibition on at a gallery in Sydney with making sculptures and drawings of all these animals that we wanted to tell people about, that we wanted people to celebrate. And I think that's where it all kind of started to come together. Not necessarily as a business model. We were never like, oh, let's as artists do this, this, and that. It was something just so organic from the need to want to help the animals, right? So we started experimenting different mediums, different, like just the tools that we had, and just use that, get it out there into the world, and let's see if people respond to it. And that's, I guess, the start of the story.
And it's a beautiful story because it also lets other people interpret it, even from the name Eggpicnic. Your story is that. But somebody who doesn't know your story can go, oh, it's the shape of the bird, or is she talking about endangered species? But if you have enough eggs, then they might not be extinct or something like that. It's a story that lets your fans, people who love your work, also carve out stories for themselves in there. It's really interesting that you spoke about Paddington Bear, who my daughters love. But it's also our story when we left Sri Lanka a decade to come to Australia. Yes, there was a civil war and all of those things happening for 30 years. So not all of the national parks were accessible.
Yeah.
We didn't know about the leopard.
Wow.
We walked to the Canberra Zoo and go, what's a Sri Lankan leopard? Why is the Sri Lankan leopard so important? And then you start researching and then you go, okay, this is what it is. How important is it from your perspective to tell our young generation, our children, about the amazing species that they grow up with?
I think there's something just so pure in the wonder that children have, that for me, it's really important to create those spaces for children to not let go of that as they grow older. I feel like a lot of when we talk about animals, a lot of people are like, oh, that'd be, that's a great idea for like a kid's show, or for kids. Oh, this is great for a kid's room. Like we're always kind of like pushing our responsibility out of our hands as adults and putting it onto the kids, when really it's our responsibility to teach the kids and to promote the love, that sense of awe that they have, to allow it to grow and to allow them to carry it with them as they grow older, and not be like, all right, tomorrow you're an adult, find a job, move on, do this. Everything else was just part of like, the playfulness of that stage of your life. And it's not. It's a really important thing that we need to carry, because that wonder and that love is how it will then dictate how we live our lives as adults, and the impact that we have, either contributing to extinction or contributing to care.
We as adults, what do we need to know about some of the key numbers or stats or facts about conservation, or animals that are extinct or nearly extinct? That we need to, so that'll wake us up a bit.
Yeah, look, I think the narrative is always around numbers and why should we care and all of that, when really the only reason as adults we should care about nature is because nature has the right to exist, period. All these studies coming out with, oh, but you have to protect nature because it's good for your mental health. If you hug a tree, you'll live 500 years more. Like, the narrative is always around us and the benefit it brings us. And no matter what number I throw at you, like, it's really easy to forget or to move on, because we're just like, it's all about us and we just move forward with our own lives, right? But just understanding that nature has the right to be here, that as adults, that's what I want people to understand. Like, that's it. There's no underlying, we just have to, like, these are lives, these, and behind the numbers are lives of other beings. And, conservation is not just out there. It's not just for the scientists. Like, whoever we are, whatever profession we have, we can contribute to shaping a future in which, we're all in it. We're all in it. And so I think that just the understanding that nature has the right to be here is enough for me.
In your journey as an artist, how important is it for you to sit with nature while you do your art?
I'm really lucky that I don't have to be in nature to love nature. Like, I've grown up in different places, from very rural areas surrounded by hummingbirds to very busy cities, next to buildings. So it's always been a part of me no matter where I go. I am, however, very lucky to live next to a reserve, and I am there every single afternoon. Like, that's just my safe space. And we're so lucky to live in Canberra. I see gangs every day. And this is the thing about conservation as well, is that adults and, like us in general, people in general, think that it's something so removed, when all these species actually live in our parks, in our cities. Sure, you might be able to name 5 iconic endangered species. The list is endless in Australia, and we just don't pay attention to it because the animals are right there. So for me, going into the reserve and being there, it's just like, I just reset myself and go like, all right, this is my mission. This is what I love. This is nature is my peace, and I will do anything to protect it. And I'm lucky to live in a city that has the most amazing bird life. Nature is so accessible. But I think that shouldn't limit you to engage with nature. Like, if you live in a city, that shouldn't be your excuse to say, oh, but I don't live next to a reserve.
For someone who is as passionate as you are about conservation, what are the misconceptions about conservation?
I think a lot of the misconceptions are what we sort of just touched upon, is that it's something that is for the politicians, the environmentalists, like, they'll deal with it, they know about it. When really the ecosystems and all the issues need so much public support, which is what we try and raise. We get everybody involved. I feel like if you're an artist, if you're a teacher, if you're a communicator, you're a builder, like, everybody's going to play a role in either contributing to the bad stuff or contributing to the good stuff. So I think that misconception of conservation is just a word so removed. And also a misconception of these species that are endangered live way out there in some jungle or way out there in some remote landscape. Like, people never think that they're right there at your doorstep, and they live there. So I think that we have to realize just how a part of our daily lives, like, these animals are. And not just animals, the flora and and the trees and it's everything. It's up to everybody, and the species are here. They're not far away, and we all have to contribute. I think as a culture, we need to shift the way we think, the things we do, to kind of incorporate this into our lives and to feel that it's a part of our lives. It is, but a lot of people don't feel like it is. Even when we talk about animals, people say it, or there's something in that tree. Like, the most basic thing, our language, the grammar we use creates a wall between us and nature. Like, it's 2 separate things, because there's something in that tree. No, there's someone in that tree. Or you would never treat your grandmother as it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is hungry. No, you would never say that. So we're putting animals in the same category as this cup or a paper clip. So there needs to be a really deep shift in our culture to be able to be much more open and empathetic towards lives that are not just human.
How do we do that?
I think that bond actually already exists. People have a connection to animals. People just don't have the spaces to express themselves and to strengthen these connections.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens a lot because I receive emails on the daily basis of how much a certain animal means to someone, right? So I'll get emails like, I just wanted to say that I'm really happy I have this artwork of this bird because my mom passed away, and we used to, really get a lot of joy out of these birds coming to our backyard. Or every grandmother in Australia is a superb fairy wren. Like, we get that story so much that, I'm buying this piece because my nan died, and I see her every time I see a fairy wren because she used to love them and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's these amazing stories of when people are either in really high moments of joy or really dark moments of grief, and they want to hold on to a memory, or they need to hold on to something. Like, we get emails of people who, like, parents who have lost their children, saying, like, this bird is now my bird. It represents my child. They come as a flock since I lost my child. Like, there's so much symbolism in the connections we have with animals. But on a day-to-day, if you don't allow those instances to happen, if you don't create those platforms or give people those spaces, it can get lost. So I think that's where art and design play a really important role in creating new symbols, in creating new languages in which people can reinforce those connections. Because once you realize that that bird or that animal means so much to you, what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to protect it, right?
Yeah.
It's like love leads to, like, I care, I love, I protect. Like, it's this whole chain. But you need to give people that space. And people have been very responsive towards our work because they can have it at home. They can keep it with them. It's their daily reminder of something. We've had people say, I bought this piece of yours because I have it at home as an icebreaker to talk to my friends about climate change. I literally got one this morning before this interview. Like, I'm buying this piece for my daughter because these are the 5 birds that mean so much to me that I want her to grow up taking care of them. So if you give people these tools through art, through public art, through experiences, I think that that's a first step for empathy and for love and for care. And then, that's where we need to start having these conversations. Conservation is about stats. Like, there's no denying that. Conservation is not just factual, though. It's emotional as well. But based on these numbers and based on the urgency of these issues is that art comes in and helps communicate what's going on.
So we spoke about the letters, the feedback, the notes you get from people that engage with your artwork. You also spoke about how you take the time to ensure your artwork is accurate and has the care for the individuals that you're capturing. What does that tell you about you as an artist?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think that, I can't draw from my imagination. And I'm very, like, because I love science, I need things to be accurate and to translate exactly as they are. And because of my drawing, because my drawing abilities were quite limited, I think that I found a style that was simple enough to somehow capture the essence of the animal while maintaining the scientifical accuracy or the biological accuracy of it. And I think that's really important in the work because I feel like through the work, we're not just making people love animals or pause in this, moment of awe and appreciation, but it's also like, so then you can, once you see that artwork, then you can probably recognize the bird in real life because the features were, are quite iconic, or the colors are quite iconic and the shapes are simplified enough for them to kind of like stay in your mind and linger for longer. So I think that there is an element of translating the animal to the drawing so then you can go back to the animal and recognize the animal.
You did answer the question with the passion you have for the subject matter. But a lot of the time what happens is we get distracted with the commercials.
Yeah.
We get distracted with volume. We get distracted with delivery. In your journey as an artist, how do you manage to, you can't always avoid it, but how do you manage to stay away from some of those distractions and just focus on the art you create?
Well, the thing is that I'm like, this is my mission. And as I look at that little girl that loved animals and I'm like, this is it. Like, there's nothing else I want to do in my life. So when we started, it's like what I said before. We didn't start and say, hey, let's build this brand called Eggpicnic and let's make prints and let's do that. And this is our business model. It was like, no, I'm just getting work out because this work comes from a place of fear that we're not going to have these animals. So it was just making. And then people were like, oh, can we have that as a print? Oh, okay, yeah, we can make prints for people and this and that. And along the way, we did get a lot of distractions of like people thinking that the work was, really striking and really cool. And oh, can we have it for the head office of this brand that has been polluting the ocean, the biggest ocean polluter? And I was like, pause. The whole point of the work is to get people to care. What credibility would I have if I then take these animals and just paste them on a random project that has nothing to do with our values? So I feel like the whole trajectory we've had, I'd rather sacrifice not having that money or not having that project, because this is bigger. Like for me, if it can turn into a movement, great, but I'm going to stick to my principles and be, as aligned as I can, always with my values, and not get distracted with everything else. I feel like once you're authentic and true, things really fall into place and start to work out anyway.
For someone that cares so deeply about what you are doing, but about the environment around you, what do you see every day that makes you sad?
Oh my gosh. Look, for me, because I'm in the science bit of it too, because I'm working with the ecologists, we're working with the scientists. So I get all the data and it's soul crushing, right? So I feel like every day I wake up with like, with a heartbreak, And it's just like, okay, but this energy I need to transform into something that's going to contribute to protecting the places that we have and the animals and the individuals that live in these habitats. So I just try and remember, there's this one moment that I felt was very defining, which is, so we're part of the Bird Club, Birding New South Wales, and we were surveying in Capertee Valley, which is where they release the Regent honeyeater. So the Regent honeyeater is a very endangered bird. It's a critically endangered bird in Australia that you may have heard of. And their populations have become so fragmented and so isolated that the birds are forgetting their own songs. Like they don't even, they're singing like other birds because they don't have other Regent honeyeaters around them. So that fact alone was pretty soul crushing. But we were surveying in Capertee Valley, and we usually survey in groups, and we were with a few people looking in the area if we saw any regions. And it was my first survey, and I got so lucky that I spotted a Regent honeyeater. And I'm pointing at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, does everybody see this? Is this a Regent honeyeater? Like my heart is just like, pounding, because I'm in the presence of a critically endangered bird. And back then there were less than 350 left in the wild. And I remember standing there and we're all looking at the tree with our binoculars. And my friend Elizabeth, who is a few generations above me, says, when I was your age, we didn't have to go looking for them. Oh man, that was like, that just destroyed me. It was like so bittersweet to be standing there and seeing these beautiful flashes of gold and then having her say that, because it's like, it takes so little to lose so much.
Yeah. And that sets the tone, because I'm reflecting back on my experiences growing up in Sri Lanka, where you see such majestic, beautiful elephants paraded at sacred functions, looked after by the villagers. And now you hear of an elephant-human conflict. And I go, what absolute nonsense. The elephants are not in conflict with us. They are just trying to live,
Yeah.
and we've encroached upon
We have
their spaces.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, that lack of understanding that sometimes it doesn't have to have a huge, majestic creature like an elephant.
Yeah.
It could be a beautiful, delicate bird that's landing on your fence or on the balcony.
Or just moss growing on your wall. Like,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. Yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly what we consider as a society majestic or worthy of noticing.
How do we teach our children to appreciate the smallest species all little living creature, because I think we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that we as adults need to be in tune. And that's why we need to recognize our own connections and what nature means to us and how we contribute to taking care of it every day. Like, what are we doing as adults? Because we need to teach the children. So you need to lead by example.
Is there a Canberra birding club?
There is the Canberra Ornithology Group, COG. Yes, you can join COG.
Right.
But yeah, that would be an excellent, that's a way that I learned a lot more about birds that wasn't just on my own, was joining, because we were living in Sydney, Birding New South Wales. And it was amazing because these are people a few generations above you who know absolutely everything about trees, about birds, about, it was just like they're an open book and they're so excited to teach you about it. And they're patient and they're just these loving, kind people that love the earth so much. So everything I've learned has been, from them and from having this community group. So as you're saying, community is really important. I mean, everyday lives with like individual families is important, reinforcing, letting kids be curious, letting them be playful, let them look at a bug for an hour if they want to. Like, I was that girl that was like, I will be in my backyard and look for that bug and stare at that bug because I am so mind blown for like half an hour and just let them be. Because that fascination just, it stays with you until society tells you to let go. So as long as you protect your children from that stigma that they have to let go or grow out of animals, like, I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, look, this might not be a popular opinion, but when I was growing up, the little kid down the garden that will collect snails and that will look after them was called a weirdo. And that's where I think parenting needs to be stronger so that we support their passions.
100%. There is a quote by a designer that I really like that says, the things that made you weird as a kid make you great today. 100%. 100%, like the stigmas or you're the weird kid or you're the that is so true. But I am so proud of being that little girl that was staring at the bug for 30 minutes and now, look how much this has grown into something based on my interest in, the world around me. And my parents, I guess, allowing me to have that interest, but just also finding the spaces, reading the books that I like to read, just, finding my own way.
Love it. Let's speak about how your creation process works.
Okay.
So your art creation process, I think, is wider than you thinking of a concept and drawing it, because I think there are multiple sources that inform it. Take me through that process.
Okay. So the process is usually, so the concern to protect an animal is like always there. That's the base of the work. Like, what do we do to effectively get this animal that is very unseen out into the wild for people to, learn about and embrace? So usually, depending on the animal, like, I'm really good with birds. So I feel like I can sit down and draw the birds pretty accurately, choose the colors. I tend to name colors after food. So I look at an image of a bird and I sort of like record the colors and say, all right, that blue looks like this color. This orange looks like melon, but more red. And then once I've sort of burned the colors in my head, then I go and pick the colors. So I don't go and just go through all the oranges. Like, I know what I'm looking for. I know exactly it. And it has to be the right color. Like, the importance of getting the color right is one thing. And then also when we're working with species that, if we're having an exhibition about microbats or about frogs, animals that I might not see on a daily basis, I will immediately go and contact the ecologist that works with the microbats, and that person will guide me through the entire process. Like, is the shape right? Is the ear right? Is the tail the right length? And we have built such a beautiful community of scientists, of ecologists who support our work, who we work with. So we have so much access to information when creating the work. So I have a lot of support in that sense.
You say that you have a lot of access. that access isn't readily available for somebody not looking for it. You take the time to go and look for it. You take the time to build this community. Tell me of a time that an ecologist was able to give you some really useful information that brought more character or personality into a piece of art that you were building.
I think there was a really big installation about an ecosystem I had not much information about. And even if you looked it up, like there's bits here, bits there. I was contacted by Dr. Kate Umbers from the Western Sydney Uni. She also runs Invertebrates Australia, and she's been studying the Alpine region for the last 10 years or more. And according to the scientific stats, by 2070, there will basically be no snow left in the Alpine region in Australia, right? So she comes to me...
By when?
By 2070.
Wow.
So she comes to me and says, I went on your website and I found a species that nobody has ever drawn. Like, why do you have this in your collection? She was very curious. And I was like, because they matter. Because I want to be inclusive with species and have as many animals in the collection, because it's not just about the ones that we can name. The ones that we can name can lead us into discovering many more species that live in the same ecosystem, right? And she says, I would love for us to work together on a project that raises public support for the Alpine ecosystem. And I knew very little about the Alpine ecosystem. So we're planning, so this was back a few years. So she said, we're going to get funding through the university for a research project to scientifically quantify the impact of art on conservation. And we were going to do this via 2 different channels. And one of the channels was putting up a public art piece about the Alpine ecosystem that led to a survey and a few things to collect data from people to see how people were responding. And we were going to have to do this installation. And I'm like, where do I start? And I told her, look, usually how we do the work is we have to have species that people recognize. Like, you can't just go and put a ton of species that people cannot name, have never seen. Like, you have to create a door that you can open with, oh, okay, out of these 10 species, oh, I can name that one. And then, oh, but this one lives next to that one. You know, there has to be some familiarity to the work for people to sort of stop. And so I said, so can I meet you halfway? Can we have species that, you know, are maybe less vulnerable, but are also part of the same ecosystem? And that's how we get the more endangered species in. And she's like, 100%, let's do it. So we included, and then she sent me a ton of research and photos of a selection of species. And she said, I'm really open to us discussing how we're going to build this ecosystem, you know? So she actually, we had an exhibition in Canberra a few years ago called Between You and Me, which was about the connection about people and animals. A little bit what I was talking about, like, we have that connection. We just need a space to be able to express ourselves. And she opened the exhibition saying, you know, as a scientist, she has, like, all the facts. I have all the numbers. Like, and it is a privilege for her to be out there doing this work. But the art brings the heart in, and science needs the arts. Like, we just need each other to move forward. Like, this is a partnership. We're stronger together. I never see science or the facts or the data as a barrier. I see it as a bridge that we connect. So there's a lot of interaction with the scientists to, in the end, develop a piece that translates the numbers and the urgency, but also visualizes the beauty and the side of hope. And you know what? This is what we're going to miss out on if we continue to do things the way that we do them.
Has there been any species that were endangered or nearly endangered that you have drawn that we've lost?
That is a very good question. I'm going through, we have like, just in birds alone, I have like 500 species that we've drawn. That's just the birds. But I don't believe so. On the brink of the brink, yes. I have also done work of species that we have lost, that we haven't lost during the time, but that we have lost in the past, bringing them back to show people, these were the species that are no longer around us.
Can you tell me about 2 or 3 of the species that are on the brink and what we need to know that, or what actions we can do to protect them?
Yeah. So I think, there's like, the question is, where do I even start? Because how do you choose? Like, how do I choose to,
Is there someone in our surround, somewhere, some species
like
closer to us?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. So, how long have you been in Canberra for?
A decade.
Okay, I've been in Canberra only for 4 years, so you've been longer than me. Did you see Christmas beetles when you moved to Canberra?
Yes.
Were they the big, shiny, beautiful beetles around Christmas time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see them anymore?
No.
Okay. I've lived in Canberra for 4 years. I think in 4 years I've seen 2. These beetles, apparently, back, when, I don't know, our parents were young or whatever, that time, were everywhere. Like, I have stories of people saying, like, they couldn't even close the door of their house. Like, the beetles were just on everywhere, on everything. Like, you had to, like, walk like this to not step on them. They were just, like, the abundance of them was amazing. And then fast forward, we don't know where they went. And there's not enough data to know where they went, because the thing is, like, a lot of the time, like, they don't know is it pesticides? Is it, like, there's so many theories around it. But also, here's when people come in. Citizen science matters. So we work with Invertebrates Australia, and they do the Christmas beetle count. There's a lot of these activities happening across various organizations. BirdLife Australia does it with the backyard bird count, the Christmas beetle count, because there's not enough scientists to go around to people's backyards counting beetles and keeping track of populations, right? So they call on the citizens to help, and usually it's either a very easy to download app or a website, and it's an activity you do by yourself or with your family or with your kids, and you submit that information, and that information alone allows them to start mapping the animals and to be able to understand why they're declining, because how can we bring them back when we don't know what's going on? So citizen science is a massive thing that we promote. There is so much out there in Australia to do. You can do it, and it's not complicated. It doesn't take long, and it really, really helps the science. There's not enough scientists to go around counting the animals, finding the animals. Like, everybody needs to help out. And I think that's a really good example, because it's a beetle that in a very short, amount of time went from everywhere to I've seen 2 in 2 years. Where did they go? So things like that were right in front of our eyes. Again, we're thinking remote. Oh, this bird that lives on this island, this remote island, in my backyard.
And it's a story close to our heart, because for about 2 or 3 years, we'd never seen the Christmas beetle. Then there was a swarm of something in the backyard and the houses, and then people on the notice board were going, "Oh, that's the Christmas beetle." And that was 1 year. And it was, people were talking about the inconvenience of it. And I think that framing still sometimes saddens me, that we think nature is an inconvenience. We have not evolved to be smart enough to go, no, we've taken their space. That's all right. Yeah. We also have the right to exist. How do we coexist?
Yeah. So, and also I want to just point out that there was an article going around in Canberra, because there was a swarm of beetles, but that's a different beetle. But people get them confused. So I just want to make sure that people, because a lot of people were saying when this came out in the news, all the Christmas beetles are back, but they're a different beetle. So as well, working with promoting the animals, what do they look like, so that people can then identify them, because misidentification then leads to wrong stats and wrong numbers. So it's a whole chain of things. I think reinforcing the bonds with the animals that we do love, that we, that we think are not an inconvenience, is the first step to understanding that these animals are also part of a greater picture and ecosystem, and all the animals are a part of that. So you can't just choose, I love this animal, can't stand that animal. Like, everything is just entangled. And putting that inconvenience aside, I think we just have to give them space. And it's just the responsibility that we carry. And we can't just say, oh, this is just a problem for the scientist, or this is just conservation, it's just in our legislation. It's a daily thing that we just have to learn to live with, to embrace, and to love, and to understand that you can't have one thing without having the other. If you don't like this beetle or this insect or this other animal, if that animal, if the population declines, that's going to affect everything else. So we can't be picky like that. And I think that's a really harmful attitude.
Is there a much loved animal or subspecies, not even subspecies, because I don't know enough about it to call it a subspecies, but let's say there is a parrot which is of a certain color or something like that, that is at risk?
A very loved parrot that is at risk. So in Canberra, we get two that I see from my window. The Gangan cockatoo, which is the bird of the ACT that represents the ACT, is endangered. And the superb parrot, which we get flocks during this time of year on the lawns of Parliament House and around Canberra, is a future endangered parrot that's being researched by ANU, by the Difficult Birds Research Group. So I literally see those two birds when I go to the post office. Like, that's how close they are to my reality and to everybody's reality here in Canberra. So that's just one example.
And in the work you're doing, we've got about 450,000 people that live in Canberra. What percentage do you think knows that the bird that we're using as a symbol is endangered?
I want to think that more people than less know about that. What I really like about Canberra is I think that Canberrans really embrace the places that they live in. I do get contacted by a lot of organizations in Canberra and schools in Canberra saying that they know the state of the Gangan cockatoo. What can we do to work together? Like, there is that community behind the species, but it's never enough. Like, for me, it's just, it needs to be more. It needs to be more. There needs to be more engagement. There needs to be more spaces for people to learn about the animals that live around us. There needs to be, and therefore there needs to be, we need more art. We need more, like, just every field. And I think that there's an amazing opportunity in Canberra to just be really ahead of our time with how we care for our species. We have those spaces, we have those opportunities, but we just need to make them happen.
In an artist mind, is it different types of art when you create something that's a piece of art for a living room or a personal space versus public art? How do you look at them?
The thing about the online work that you can get for your home is that you can personalize that to your experience. And I think that's really important. So we don't just try and have diversity of species so that everybody can find a piece of their story in the shop. But we also have an option to, for example, create your own flock. And that's one of our best-selling products because people tell their stories through that artwork and we customize it to their stories. We get a lot of people who choose like one family member each and they're all one bird and that piece is their family. Or we have people who have traveled to all these different places, or if it's a couple that's from Canada and from somewhere else, they choose half and that's like, this is our story. And I feel like giving people the possibility to tell their stories through our work creates a stronger connection to the work, therefore to the birds, to the species, and creates stewardship. And that sense of these are my birds. I'm going to do anything for these birds. So my hope is that once that piece is created and those birds become your birds, then you're going to do anything for them. And you're going to become the people who protect those species.
Do people know that they can work with you to customize and tell their stories through your art?
Yes. So there's a special section, Create Your Own Flock, that has all the instructions. And I feel like it's a big word of mouth thing. Like, a lot of people know about it. And a lot of people come because they went to somebody else's house, they saw it, and they're like, this is my family flock. Or this is the flock that represents when we got married. Or this is like, it's always a really special moment in time in their lives that they create this piece that's really meaningful to them. So they like sharing it with other people naturally, right? So people come to us all the time. Like in the shop, it's really easy to customize it. We've done, you can do it with Australian birds. You can do it with birds of North America. Chris is currently outside on the computer working on expanding this to also birds of South America. There's going to be birds of Asia, so that everybody in the world can hopefully have a piece of their own story in their home.
My perception of personalized art is that it's super expensive. Give me an understanding of price, because I believe what you're trying to do is create a community and a strong movement.
Yeah.
What's price like?
Okay, so that's the thing. Like, a lot of people come to us and say, oh, is this a limited edition thing? You know, if we release a print or something. And I'm like, no, it's an open edition. Oh, okay. Like, it feels like it immediately devalues the work for them. Whereas for me, the value in the work is that if everybody in Australia loves the Eastern Rosella and everybody wants to have the Eastern Rosella at home, so be it. Because that's what it's about. It's about connection. So I remember one time we did a limited edition of 50 orange-bellied parrots, which was when there were 50 orange-bellied parrots left in the wild. And they went. And I never did that again because then I had a mom say, this is my little boy's favorite bird. Like, is this print still available? No, it's not. You know? And it was like a statement to do it as a 50 piece because that was the handful amount of birds that was left. But I never did it again. And we try and make sure that the work is really accessible. For a custom piece or something like that, you're looking at a piece that's like a meter long, between 320 and 385, and that's the whole process of you choosing, telling us the birds, us designing it for you, sending it back to you. Are you happy with it? Let's go. We produce your piece. We ship it out because it's included. Or you saying, look, actually, can we change this bird for that bird? So sometimes there's a back and forth, and I will not print your piece until you love it to absolute bits because I know what it's going to mean to you. So that's sort of the price range that we're looking. That's for a custom piece. So that's like the highest range in our shop.
Fantastic. Now tell me, I want to go a step further.
Okay.
I've got a living space where we want to do a wall art or something on the wall, or not just a picture, something more immersive. Do you do things like that?
Oh my gosh, yes. So apart from artwork, like the static artwork, we try and keep up to date with what keeps people excited, right? Because this is all about engagement and getting people to participate, creating these platforms for people to join. So we have learned augmented reality, we have learned animation, we have learned to do sculpture. So we come in 2D and 3D, it moves in 3D, it pops up through your phone. Like, there's all these experiences that we've created. And learning animation just gave another layer to the work. Then that was Chris, by the way, because I do all the drawings, but then I cannot animate. Chris does all the animation, like he does all the sculpture 3D, because remember, I only think in 2D. I can only do side view, dorsal view, but it's quite limited, whereas Chris brings in sort of the artistry, I guess you could say. And by giving things movement and sound as well. So we also collaborate we've done a lot of work with Dr. Ann Jones, and the music producer Corey Haig, and they have brought sound and music into our work. And that for me was like absolutely mind-blowing when we discovered that. And I remember we discovered that because we were filming a show for ABC with Dr. Ann, and we were just having a little chit chat on the side of the cameras. And she goes, "What are you guys working on?" And we're like, "Oh, we're going to project onto the Sydney Harbour Bridge on the pylons." And she says, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So how are you doing it? Like with, is there music? Is there?" And we're like, we have no idea how we're gonna do this because we've never done it. And she goes, "Well, if you need anything, just let me know." And, Dr. Ann Jones is basically like a library of nature sounds. And I'm like, okay, I think we're onto something here. We're onto something. And then we were like, all right, do you guys want to come on board and take care of that and bring it to life? And that was the first time that we could see the birds moving and have the whole immersive experience. And then right before that, we had done the facade of Parliament House. So the two things were like 3 months apart from each other. And it was really like a really quick learning environment for Chris more than for me because he had to animate. Because before getting any of these two commissions, the only animation we had done was a 1 minute, I think it was a 30-second bird flying across the screen. That's all the experience we had. And then we got, do you want to do Parliament House? Do you want to do the Sydney pylon, the Harbour Bridge pylons? And we're like, yes. Do we know how to animate? No. But, that's tomorrow's problem. Just say yes, and then we'll sort it out. And just being able to create more of an experience that you feel like you enter it, you feel like it's holding you, was really like next level amazing. And we had that experience we just did Vivid Sydney. And they gave us the Argyle Cut, which is this beautiful site in the rocks, and it's massive. And actually the only other times that it had been activated was like by Disney and the BBC. So we had like a massive responsibility on our hands. And they hadn't activated that site since 2019. And we had always wanted to have that site with Chris. We were just like, always, this would be so amazing. And when we got it, just having that space, we had live sound. They completely shut down the street so people could go and experience it. And we were there watching people interact with it. We were like flies on the wall. And people were like, it was really cold in the middle of winter, and you're on the street. People were just lying down, for such a like long periods of time at a time, just lying down there, taking in bloom. And I had a lady who recognized us, and she came to me and she said, "I feel like I healed watching this." And then somebody else said, "I feel like we're collectively meditating, like together watching this." And we were there for rehearsals with the director of Vivid, with Gil. And Gil comes to me and we're turning the lights on and we're just doing like checks and things. And Gil says, it like, this feels like a temple. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I want this to feel like. Like this sacred space of nature. And in that animation as well, it was really important to include, because Vivid is such a diverse crowd. You get people from overseas, you get people from, and Sydney itself is such a beautiful multicultural place that you get people who have all sorts of backgrounds. So instead of that, this year just doing the Australian animals, we did animals from all over the world so that people could recognize their stories no matter where they came from.
That's so interesting because in the public space or in the commercial public space, there's lots of things screaming for your attention. From big retailers to fast food joints, there's people screaming for your attention. How do you grab attention in a way that's meaningful and profound?
I think the work doesn't try to be noisy or loud. It just, like as I said before, what the work is that's exactly what I saw in nature. And that's why it's so amazing. And it catches people and it's striking and it's simple and it wants to have a presence, but it doesn't want to be loud. And in that presence, it wants to create like these moments of stillness that you're in awe, or, something's happening there. You're either experiencing joy or connection, or you're moved. And I think somehow we've developed a language that allows that as well. for animations, we have to adjust the work and give it more depth and more, there's more to it. But within that transition from 2D to the animation and the movement, we still make sure that each animal has a chance to shine on their own. There's a pause. Like there's just, I guess, a lot of care around things to create this sense of this is a temple. This is, a place where I feel held. And that's how I feel in nature. And that's how I want people to feel when they see our work.
From my perception of activism and people who care about certain topics, I've seen them making noise, holding signs, sometimes disrupting and interrupting.
Yeah.
When I see the work that you do, you're asking people to do things in a way that is gentle, that is calm, that is caring, which is how you want them to treat nature.
Exactly.
How do you as an artist come up with this strategy, with this idea to give people, because in our lives also we don't have a lot of calm all the time.
No. And especially with like having the internet and the phone and the things, like there's so much bombarded at your face all day that you just shut down. But I understood from the very beginning that conservation needed to be reframed in some way, because the whole like, oh, there's only 3 of these animals left in the wild, please donate here. Like the way that this was, like people would just shut down. People tend to now shut down to the negative stuff because it's just too much and too much of it, right? So I always thought, and I love how Jane Goodall approaches things. It's from the side of hope, from showing people the beautiful. This could be here all the time, instead of saying, this is going to disappear or this is really bad, or like the really doom and gloom. People tend to not respond to it so much. Whereas creating, I guess, a language that it's not putting aside the facts. Like I feel like we're building a relationship with people that includes joy, awareness, grief, like it's everything together. But it's from a place of, of hope and of this is amazing and I just want to save it. And I guess that to get across to you, I need to come from a place of love. Because if I'm like, I do go to protests, I do have my signs, like I do scream, like, but I know that if I'm going to get across, especially to someone that thinks so different to me, I need to find common ground. That's the first step. Like if I want somebody to change their mind, or if I want somebody to get more interested into something, I need to find common ground. And we can only do that with having like sort of like loving conversations to start with, and to both realize that, oh, actually, we have different opinions, but we actually love the same thing. So it's kind of like working around that language to make it inclusive. Because I just, I don't want to be talking to just one part of society, and the part of society that, that represents could also be preaching to the converted. So what's the point, right? Like I need to get to as many people that we can. And for that, I think you need that sort of like base level, I guess, calmness to communicate.
How do you see your movement or community growing?
It's really amazing. I had, like, even this morning we were getting coffee and a friend comes up and says, I went to visit some friends down in Victoria and they're from London and they were showing me your work, and I'm like, yeah, I know them. Like, he's like, wow, this is really going around and people are really embracing it. And like, just the fact that we get so many messages of what it means to them is so, it just gives me that strength to say we're doing something right. And with the research project that we're doing with the university, they're going to tap into the numbers, because I'm interested in seeing change in behavior. As an artist, as a designer, I didn't know how to measure that. Like I knew that there was something there. I know that there's something brewing and that there's something interesting and that it's growing. But they're going to look at the numbers and they're going to crunch into the data of, is this actually changing people's behaviors? Why? Why does it work? Why is it working? Like, and that partnership with the university and with Dr. Kate Umbers and her team has been amazing for us to understand what's working about the work. So we can then leverage and go, okay, this is what's working. Let's do more of that. Or this isn't working that much. Let's learn from this and do more and get the message out there and, have a greater impact.
What are the markers for you along the journey? Like you said, change in behavior. What are some of those markers along the journey that on the few down days, on the few difficult days that you may have, pick you up and give you the energy to move forward?
Oof. I think that's a good question. I think every little thing. Because every little thing, even if it's just one person that said, I really connected with this piece because of this, and that's enough for me. One person is enough, because that one person can then lead to having a conversation with another person. I know that it just, this takes a lot of work, but you start small. So I know that even every little small step counts towards the right direction. And that's enough for me.
Most communities, when we think of a large group of people and the community growing. Let's go back to how the community started. What role does Chris play in the movement that you still want to champion, the movement that you still want to build?
Chris just hold it all together. Chris has been the one that's just taken the work to another level and to different platforms and learned so many new skills, and that has allowed us to not stay in the past or not get outdated or continue to grow. Chris just runs the place. He is amazing at, he is behind everything. He is behind absolutely everything. Literally, I am in charge of doing the drawings and Chris runs the whole entire show. And I think that we've grown because we've, when we started being life partners was literally the same day we started working together. So we just sort of know each other's rhythms and work paces so well that I think that we've just our works have grown into each other. I couldn't do anything without Chris. And I think vice versa. We just, flourish together.
How do you find synergies in your ideas? Yes, you align with lots of things, but you're different people.
Yeah.
How do you find synergy?
Oh, I just think that being different people is what makes it so exciting. Because I could have one idea and then I, show it to Chris and he's like, oh, yeah, that. But what if we add this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that. And what if we add this? And things just kind of grow and grow. And we kind of know each other well enough to know, what the other one's not going to think is a great idea or not. So I think we're just we need to move forward so quickly with so many projects at the same time that, I don't know, we're just somehow in tune. And we just make it work. And I feel like the more feedback we give each other, the better the work gets. And we are very open to that. We're very open to looking at each other's work and going, I think we could push this.
Through your work with Enlighten and the projections at the Australian Parliament House and also the wonderful work you've done with Vivid, did you ever imagine that decision makers, people who should take the initiative to make some of those changes that we all really need, would walk past that art, look at that art, hopefully reflect upon that art? Was that part of the thinking?
I don't think it ever really crossed my mind. But it's been an amazing journey. Having the ability to illuminate sites that are so representative, not just of, where politicians go and work but they represent the community. They're sites that are part of our national history. So bringing nature into there, it's, I want to tell people we're not two different things. And I was actually, yes, standing outside of Parliament House when we illuminated for Enlighten. I was just watching people watching it. And I'm like, yeah, I hope these people get to watch it and they can't turn their backs on this, So it was just a really surreal opportunity that was back to back in Canberra with Parliament House, which was really symbolic for us. Yeah, it was definitely like, this is where the big calls get made. And I'm going to turn this into a forest, and a lot of, like, we had some politicians approach us and say, like, yeah, this was great. We needed this. Like, we need to have more of these conversations. And then back to back with, the pylons of the Harbour Bridge as well, a site that is just so enormous. But again, I feel like these sites not only represent the city, but the people that we are, and bringing nature back onto it as a projection was kind of like, this isn't us and them, this is ours. Yeah.
When you get such lovely feedback from decision makers, how does the passionate, bold Camila reinforce that some action is needed? With politeness, obviously.
I like, again, finding common ground. I could get really disappointed of, okay, but then where's the action? But I feel like we need to approach this from like a more grown, from a place of like being more mature and being the bigger person. And okay, if you thought this was great, let's talk about it. Like, not shutting the door, but opening the door.
It's a great conversation starter.
100%. 100%. It's a great conversation starter. And it's like, okay, you thought this was great. Let me tell you more about it. Like, let's talk about it. And this is the problems that we're facing, and these are the issues. And so how do we solve them? And how do you come in? How do I come in? And how do we all work together on this, So, yeah, there's been a lot of politicians really interested in the work. And I guess that's also a really important step to take with the work, right? Because if you can influence in any small way any big decision, then that's a step in the right direction.
For most artists, and also somebody who has a really deep passion about conservation, commercial success is part of the factor, part of the equation to keep you going. How do you take stock of your ethics and your values when there are commercial decisions that you just cannot align with?
I'd rather sacrifice, and I have to rethink the logistics of things, but I will not take on a project that has nothing to do with our values, or that feels like greenwashing, or that I know that company approached us just to, because they want to look better but not be better. Like, I will never, ever take on that project. And we've been very consistent with what we do it for. We've been invited to do, for example, projects in a development site that was in a region of something, and I was like, okay, but did that development affect the species that live there? Like, we have to just read into every single thing. And I'm really lucky that we have like this whole map of amazing ecologists and people that I can go like, look, I just got the plans for this building. Can you go through it and check? And what was, did they find any species there? Like, to build the building, did they destroy habitat? Like, just little things like that. Just everything, we try and be really rigorous and just read into every detail of everything, because I don't want to disappoint people. Because I feel like I represent nature. Right? And I don't want people to think, oh, this piece that's in my house that I love, that I now take care of these animals, oh, they went and worked with, like X and Y. Like, I just want to keep that credibility and empower it and keep it growing and get people to join and want to change. And if I make the right calls just for money, like, then I stand for nothing.
in an artist's journey, it's not linear. At least success isn't. Your skills would also, as an artist, evolve, but your journey to success isn't linear. Tell me about the journey, because I don't want also people listening to frame it that, oh, yeah, she's created a journey in art. She's really successful. Chris and Camila are doing really well, and they're in all of these strong groups, and they're, projecting their art in significant places so they can now do this. But tell me about the journey where it's not linear success, but also where you've still held strong with your ethics.
Yeah. Well, success is such a weird word though, right? Like how do we define success? Like what is success? For me, success is just getting one email of somebody saying, "Thank you. I have this bird at home. I care now." The end. Like that for me means everything. So I'm not really chasing, I guess, the conventional success of like bigger projects and more money and more, like that is never on the table. So my success, I guess, is defined by how much I can impact the communities around me. And that's how I measure it. And sure, I think I know what you mean. Like sometimes, there's ups and downs in the arts, but we've learned to embrace the quiet periods with now we get to do whatever we want. So whatever project we had in mind that wasn't guided by either a council or, we're not doing work for somebody specifically or a public art installation, or we get to be very experimental with our work. And we learn to, instead of panic in those moments of quiet, to embrace it and make the most of it.
How do you promote your work? How do you get the word out about your art, but also the other services you offer?
Well, Chris has built a really great website because we also have done all of that by ourselves. I think the first time that it really got out there into the world was when we got a grant through City of Sydney in 2017, when they made it mandatory for buildings that were under construction to have artwork as opposed to advertising. That was amazing. So there was a big application process, and I think they chose around 10 artists. And those 10 artists would have their work licensed for 3 years or for 20 sites. And we applied with the bird portraits. So we did a series of Birds of Australia. And we, got to stage 2, stage 3, we got it. And then one day I get an email from the council saying the first site is up. And I'm on the bus. And I'm like 2 blocks away from where they told me that the site was. And I remember saying, we had driven by because we had an idea of where it could be. And we had driven by and we just saw like the bottom of the site. And we're like, oh, maybe it's going to be on that little wall there. And then when I got off the bus and I was like, stop the bus. I need to go see this.
Such a commanding, stop the bus.
Guys, stop the bus. And I ran to the street and I'm walking, and as I'm walking like 3 blocks away, I start seeing the birds because they are so enormous. They are like 9 stories high because it wasn't the bottom site that they were going to do. It was the entire building that they were going to cover. And I'm just standing there going like, I never imagined our work at this scale, right? It was just like, and then I realized, that's the first time we realized actually this needs to turn into public art. Like this needs to not just be in the homes or be in the exhibitions or this needs to be out there in the world. And I think that, and then we had 20 sites all over Sydney covered in birds. So that gave us a lot of momentum. And at the same time, the City of Sydney gave us an office space, a studio space in the city. So we were able to kind of like grow and strengthen ourselves and really sit down and say, okay, what is the work going to do? What's the mission? And we bought our own printer. We started doing our own prints, running the online shop, doing the public art. And I think that's when we kind of like understood where this needed to go.
How much of a critic are you? And I'll tell you where I'm approaching this from. So let's say Chris is doing some animation work, or there is some of your art getting printed. Now, what's in the computer doesn't always print perfectly.
No.
How much of a critic are you, and what has that taught you about yourself as an artist?
I'm a big critic of everything. I feel like that's why it's hard to get things made elsewhere unless I make them and I have control of the whole process, like Chris and I. Like, I am down to the details. Like, if we have a print come out and the profile was not set right, and Chris is printing, and I'm like, that's like half a shade off. There's something wrong with this, and but I guess because I've seen the work so much that I learned to pick up on little things that I know nobody else would care about, but I care deeply about. Like, I know that I chose that for a reason. That works, that needs to be this way, and it needs to be like this. And I think Chris now understands that after so many years being together. He's like, he kind of knows. Like, I'll come and say, oh, do you think this flower's moving too fast? And he's like, yeah, I knew you were going to say that. I haven't fixed it yet. Like, we're kind of really in tune with things. And I think that he's open to, because it's always constructive criticism and very respectful criticism to my own work from myself and, when we're working together. And I think just being honest with each other, and so we're both happy with the final result, is really important as well, because it keeps us happy and it keeps us doing better work.
That process, and the reason I asked you that question is that process isn't an efficient process. It's an effective process. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that may be the one print that you sold, you're printing 3 times now.
Yeah.
Because you want to get the shades right.
Yeah.
How important is that to you as an artist? Forget the commercial side of it.
Well, as an artist, this is like, I wasn't even thinking of the commercial side before that. Like, I know that nobody would care if that was 2 shades off. It's just, as an artist, like, I know that this is gonna make it, in my eyes, perfect. And perfect, I'm defining it in a sense that, I really put a lot of effort into getting the right plant with the right bird and the right proportions and the right colors, and everything came together, and I was really happy with that result. I think people will really love this piece. That 2 shades will just, like, I will not sleep if that's 2 shades off. Like, no, I had an idea in mind, and I'm going to get as close to that idea as I can. Sometimes I have learned to let go of a few things, especially when we're doing things that, for example, if we're doing projections or things like, you're not managing the projectors, or, the color from the screen to the projector changed 5% toward it's more cool than warm. And it's like, at first I would be like, oh my God, like it's the end of the world. And Chris is like, no, it's not. Like, nobody's going to notice that. It's just you. And I'm like, at first it really bothered me, but then I'm like, nobody's going to notice that. It's fine. Like, it's not changing the value of the work.
People see the mountain tops. Not everyone sees the journey you've taken to get to the top of the mountain. When you see your art projected, when you stood outside that building in Sydney where you literally stopped the bus to get out of, what do those moments teach you about your journey?
I think it was just when something just is so genuine, it just comes to life in these different forms. And if you keep pursuing it, like, I just feel like if I keep pushing in the right direction with the right intention, with all my heart, like, these things will continue to happen. And the first time I stood in front of that building, I was alone because Chris was in the office already or something. And I'm like, you want to share this with someone? It's so amazing. And it was like those weird moments that I felt like I had won an Oscar, But now that, like, I know the urgency of, like, I put aside my feelings towards the work, and I know the urgency of the conservation work that needs to be done, that now I'm like, okay, project, it's ready. Colors are perfect. People are enjoying it. They're immersive. They're next one. Like, I don't, you just have to move forward as quickly as we can, because we have so many people who want to work with us that are from conservation organizations, so many animals I need to draw. There's so much to do that I just don't even have the time to think about it, and I'm on to the next one to get as many species out there that seem very invisible at the moment. So I think that's my focus.
If you met an artist today that has a strong passion for a particular species, a particular passion in life, it's really struggling to get their work out there, to get some visibility out there, how would you give them a couple of words of encouragement?
Um, it takes a lot of courage, and it will take a lot of sacrifice. Like the arts in Australia as well. It's not an easy gig. It's very underfunded. It doesn't get the appreciation that it should. We're very behind compared to other countries. So it is more of a fight to make it work. But I think looking for opportunities, we're always looking for funding. We're always looking for, like, where can we get this work up? What can we do? Who can we team up with? I think it's just being strategic in how you think of, how the work can be placed out into the world. That's not just you as one individual trying to get it out there, but maybe how do you collaborate? How do you start collaborations? How do you start to create ripples from this one work? But you just need to stick to it. You're going to want to give up a million times, but you just have to keep going.
Good advice from somebody who's done it. I ask lots of questions about children because I look at them as a strong contributor to our futures and the ability to make change. If a child or a young person was standing in front of your art and looking at it, what would you want them to feel?
I just want them to know that they don't ever have to grow out of the sense of wonder and love for nature. That's all I want them to know. They can do whatever they want in life, but as long as you carry that love with you, that'll guide all the decisions that you make moving forward. And that'll take you to places where you can, you're either going to contribute to the bad stuff or you're going to care. So I want them to stand in front of the work and go, be amazed, be in awe, but also know that awe is something that you just need to carry forever.
If you were able to have a chat with the child's parents who are standing in front of that artwork, what would you tell the parents knowing that they can influence the child?
Well, we've actually done it the other way around as well. We did a big project in rural New South Wales with a school in a town called Carragable of about 200 people. And we did a project in which, that's around where we do bird surveys. So that's why we're very familiar with that community. And there's a public school with about 30 kids. And we teamed up with that public school. And those kids each were assigned one bird. And they had to research their bird, learn everything about their bird, and pitch that bird to their class. And then from those birds, they were going to choose 18 to be on a giant mural that's right across the street from the school. A giant mural, right? And the kids were just, like, the teachers were coming to us and saying, they are just so engaged. They're working during lunchtime. Like, they all love their birds so much. So they pitched it to the class. They voted for the 18 birds. The birds went onto the facade. And then it didn't stop there. The kids just went on to then tell their parents, we need to buy binoculars and the bird guide because I am going to, go out there and find my bird. So they're usually kids of like farmers around in the area. So then all the farmers are buying binoculars, getting the bird book. The kids are like, we're going to go birding, So it's the kids really inviting the adults in, which was amazing. And the adults, because it's, their kids had no other option but to embrace this. So, and from that mural, it was so successful. And the kids feel that sense of stewardship with their species that they see on the mural, that then that expanded into other schools, into different programs of how to care for bats, bugs, and bees and like other species. So like everything can turn into something bigger. But it was really nice to see that the kids were telling the parents, like, this is how we take care of the birds. And the whole point of the mural was that they want people to come to the town and they want to teach them, this is our bird life, these are the issues, and this is how we can protect them.
So what's next for Eggpicnic?
So we're really excited to be expanding our work into North America. We're working on a new collection. I don't know how much I can reveal, but we're working on a new collection that is in partnership with the National Audubon Society. So they're the largest bird conservation organization in the US. So we're really excited to be able to expand our work. I am originally from Chile, and the past year we've started bringing the work back home, which was really amazing for me because it all kind of started in Sydney when I had already moved away from Chile, and I want to take the work back. So we've been working for a few years with the Jane Goodall Institute in Chile, celebrating the Day of the Chilean Fauna, and working on animations, on projections to take all of the work we've done here around the world and especially back home. So it's been really exciting for me because I now get to work with ecologists that are from where I come from. I get to draw the animals. I get to learn more about my own country. So I feel like that's a big focus for the things that come next. But there's a lot coming up. And I'm just really excited to share everything once it comes out.
For everyone that's a fan and that supports you and that can't afford to get the front of their house painted with a massive mural, how else can people join the movement? How else can people be part of your movement?
I think it's just a general movement of people who care. Like, I don't like calling it my movement. I feel like we just put some work out there into the world and the people embraced it in different ways. Some people like to go for a walk and walk past the mural that we have in Sydney, and like that's their way of, embracing it, and that's their daily reminder. Some people have it in their homes. Some people have traveled from different countries to go to our immersive experiences in Sydney. Like, there's just so many ways that you can stay connected, and I think that we try and make it as accessible. That's why we try and get a lot out there into the public space as well. So it's not something that's just held at home, but it's open to everybody.
And if people wanted to find out more about the work you and Chris do, where do people find you?
Socials, we're mostly active on Instagram. And our website. We try and get everything on the website, images of all the public art installations, who we are, what we do, and all the species we've ever drawn are on the website as well. So that's how people get in touch with us when they want to do collaborations, when they want to do projects. I feel like that's the best means. You can always find us birding around Canberra as well. We're always like with our binoculars somewhere.
What is your favorite species or bird?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this comes back to the story of the survey in Cape Verde Valley. The Regent honeyeater became my favorite bird because it was the first critically endangered bird that I saw in the wild. And that was the moment when my friend said, when I was your age, we didn't have to go looking for them. And that just stuck with me. Like, literally every morning I wake up and I'm like, this is why I do this. The Regent honeyeater has my heart.
10, 15, 20 years from now, when you're still doing fantastic work, what's the legacy you want to leave behind?
I hope that all these years ahead of me, I hope I'm doing the work just because I think nature is amazing and not because I need to get people to care. Like, I hope that by then there would have been like a big cultural shift. Because we have all the warning signs, we have all the information we need. Like, it's all out there. It's literally given to us like this. Like, all we need to do is care and act. And that's what I hope that the future will look like.
From the hour plus that you've been generous with your time to have this conversation, I have heard you define success going, I want to make my movement. I want to make the movement more positive. I want to make more change. Yeah, sure, I can sell these things. Yeah, I can do that, but this is not my purpose. From that framing that I have heard you say again and again, what are some of those markers if there are birds or species in nearly endangered or endangered that will fill your heart with joy if they get off that list?
I mean, how can you choose though? Because honestly, I would put all the animals on the list of like future endangered, or like for me it's just taking care of everything, of everything, like every ecosystem and every individual. And actually going back to your question, you asked me if any species that I had illustrated had gone extinct in the time. No, but they have been listed to endangered. So that's how little time it takes, right? So there's like, how can you choose? It's I don't think I can answer this question. I really don't, because I just have like my list is too long.
Is it that you frame it not just as individuals, that for you it's an ecosystem?
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's all like, yeah, I'm drawing individual species, but these are like, they're all somehow connected. And it's just as important to protect if, one species connect to the other. Like, everything is just, there's repercussions, there's ecosystems, there's everything. And now with our new work, we're expanding more into, because all the scientists are like, okay, but where are the flowers? Where are the trees? Like, we're always having to learn more and add more depth to the work. So it started with birds, then it went into mammals, then it went into bats. Now the trees, now we're in the fungi, because everything matters.
So the amount of work you're getting, the amount of care you have. Tell me about the 100+ people that work at the massive Eggpicnic team.
The massive Eggpicnic team. So it's so funny when we get the email. And I actually had somebody come in for a meeting the other day, and she said, yeah, it feels like it's like 10 people at least. And when people email us like, hi, Eggpicnic team, I'm like, guys, it's just us. Like, there's 2 people. We do collaborate for projects, of course, like when we bring sound in, we work with Dr. Ann and Corey, or when now we're working on an exhibition that's going to be held in Canberra. We're working with another artist. Like, we will do collaborations. And when we're doing projections and things, we work with other teams. But on a day-to-day, like, who is answering the email of, what size can I get this framed in? That's one of us answering. From, who's going to come and supervise this project on site, well, that's one of us. So it's just us, and we've learned a lot of different abilities just because that's just what we had, and we just work with what we have, and we learn as much as we can to continue to grow and get more work out there. But it's just the 2 of us.
This is a personal question, but it's a question because I care. Both of you are busy, both of you are very talented, but both of you deeply care about what you're doing. In this busy world, with lots of other pressures that can come your way also, what are the routines you have to make sure you care for each other, but also look after your passion, your creativity? What are those routines like?
Oh my gosh. I have my own routine, and Chris has his routine as well. Like, we are together 24/7, and it's always good to, like, we also, everybody thinks we're almost like one brain, but we also have different interests in different things. Like, there's more to us. So I have my routine. Like, Chris is a morning person. I'm not. Like, there's a few differences. So I have my routine. I sacredly every afternoon go for a walk into the reserve and just be with the trees and the birds. Like, it's something I have to do. We time work around that. Like, it's like, oh, I have to, because I can't, like, I don't want to go when it's dark and I can't see. So we have to finish work by this time so I can do my walk, and then we can come back to the office. Like, that's a given. Like, I need that. That's my me time. My me time is in the reserve. Chris is more like, he also likes to go out on his own, listen to his podcasts, go around the lake. Like, we like to we love to travel. Like, we make sure that we take care of ourselves as well as a couple. And because it's really easy to get sucked into, let's just work till the very end. And we work every single day till very late. But when we're feeling that we just need to regroup, let's just go do something together. We love birding together. That's a thing that we really enjoy together. Let's just go get lost in the trees and find some birds. But we also respect each other's routines. we have different timings, different things, and we just give each other that space as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time to have this conversation. I am making a commitment to come back and have a chat with Chris on the podcast because I want to speak to him about a different angle of the fantastic work you do. Thank you for making the time for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just so honored. Thank you.
Thank you. A massive thank you to Crowne Plaza Canberra for hosting this episode of the podcast. If you are looking for really nice accommodation in close proximity to Canberra CBD, or if you want well-appointed meeting spaces, check out Crowne Plaza Canberra. Thank you again.